All right, hello. In this lesson, we are going to be getting into the IPM sequences. And this is very common in developing sort of the banjo roll style that you'll hear in lots of different sort of subgenres of fingerstyle. However, it's most prominent in the Jerry Reed, Chet Atkins, Merle Travis traditions. What I love about these patterns is that I feel like even though I wasn't initially aware of where to put these patterns, the gain of control and accuracy and timing that I got from doing these exercises really helped every other pattern that I would play. So there's a lot of sort of sub benefits to this, even if you don't want to get into doing specific banjo rolls. But they also help in developing the ability to do banjo rolls. So I just felt like, at least for me in my playing, this really helped lots of different areas. And any time I spent doing these sort of exercises really had all kind of different side benefits. The first most important thing when it comes to understanding the IPM sequence is that a lot of times we're actually going against the natural flow of how the fingers go with the hand. So in the previous exercise we had, so thumb, index, ring, thumb, index, ring. Well, these patterns are looking at it slightly differently. And if you go if you're going to go thumb, index, middle, all the way through, you can feel that you're fighting against something that's different than if you go the opposite way of your hand, right? So if you go this way, your fingers can go a lot faster than if you're going just this way. And that's just naturally the way your hand moves. So when it comes to these sort of patterns, that's the important thing. It's not just achieving the speed, it's actually achieving the sort of comfort of really dialing into how your hand naturally moves anyway. So this will be an IPM pattern, IPM, IPM, right? So you do index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, till eventually they're sort of just going in that direction right there. Sometimes you'll have to, put a finger in a different spot depending on what the chord or the melody will call for. But in general, we want to start thinking about utilizing the shape, the direction of how the fingers naturally move to your advantage. The other thing that's kind of cool about using these banjo patterns is that it's starting to look at the guitar in a slightly different way. It's utilizing every possible open string you have to develop a pattern. So instead of just having your fingers have to be on all the frets all the time to play a quicker passage, it will use anytime there's an available open string to sort of get you to transition from one spot of the fretboard to the next one. This really opened up a whole different way of thinking for me with fingerstyle, and all of that came back to understanding how much the thumb plays a role in all of that. The last thing I want to talk about before we actually break down the actual pattern here is just making sure that when you're playing these, you want to make sure that you build them up to playing them quickly but not rushed. There's a big difference there. Most guitar players don't think in terms of timing as much as how many notes can I get in between the click if I'm playing to a click at all, or to the drummer or whatever. It's really important that all of these pieces actually line up to a part of the beat so that when you actually speed it up, it is completely consistent. So just be aware of that. Try to not practice it too fast, but make sure that everything lines up to a section of the beat. All right, so now let's hop into the details of this piece. We're going to talk about what's happening on the picking hand, and then what's happening with the fretting hand and where those are going to travel to. So let's dive into that now. So to kick this off, in the very first measure, we have the classic sort of country, these little sort of chromatic pinches on the way up to the pattern. What you want to do is start with your first finger on the G on the first fret, and then you're going to do your second finger on the second fret of the G and your third finger on the third fret of the G. But what's happening here is the thumb, index, and middle are pinching each one. Remember, the pinch does not mean pop away from the guitar. It's actually pinching in, so almost kind of like you're closing the hand. There will be a natural hop to this, but you don't want that hop to be the full arm. If it's sort of, maybe there's a little bit of a hop with the wrist, but just keep that in mind. Try to stay as local to the strings as you can so you don't have longer to travel to get back to play the next passage or the next section. Okay, and now we're going to do the first finger is going to go up to the third fret here, and here's the start of the entire pattern. We're going to go thumb, and then I'm going to hammer here. So you'll see this written as sort of an IPM pattern. That's even, and a lot of the situations will entail that. This one we're actually starting with the thumb, but the idea is the same. Again, it's that direction of how the fingers are going. So I'm actually going up, and then actually what gives you that sort of speed part is the reverse part of that pattern there. So thumb, and then your index on this hand is going to go from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret. And you just have to make sure you don't mute those open B and E strings. Okay, so the pattern is going to start with like this. First finger on the 3rd fret, and then you're going to hammer onto the 4th fret with your 2nd. But you're going to go thumb, hammer, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index. There's a lot going on there, but think about it this way. You'll build up the speed with that, but really start to think about it as how it individually lines up there. So thumb, hammer, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index. That's where the pattern starts to come from. And it's important to make sure the hammer-on is the same duration as picking the rest of the notes. As guitar players, when we see a hammer-on, we do it as fast as we possibly can. I don't know why, it's just what we do. All of us do it. But with this, you want to make sure that the hammer-on is actually the same rhythm as the rest. So instead of... you want... as if you were to pick it twice in a row. The hammer-on is for effect, for the sound, but not for the speed there. Okay? Okay, after you get that pattern and you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with that, we're going to start changing things on the left hand and going to different spots on the fretboard. And for whatever reason, you're going to find that it's going to be very difficult that once you get this up and walking and you're feeling comfortable with that, the second that you change something on your fretting hand, it makes this feel confused. It's just the way muscle memory and learning something works, so expect that. You really will know that you've got a pattern when you change something on your fretting hand and this goes completely unmoved. It keeps going. So just know that as you practice slowly, this hand is going to feel completely different and new when you change something here, and that's just sort of the brain working. So expect that as you go through it. So we have that first pattern there in measure 2. Now I'm going to go up to the 8th fret. Okay, and on the 8th fret, I'm going to hammer on to my 2nd finger on the 9th right there. And you're just going to notice the pattern stays identical when we go to the next spot as well. You're going to go to the 12th fret and then hammer on to the 13th fret. And again, just watch out, especially as you go up the fretboard. It's easy to actually kind of mute. That actually sounds okay with a harmonic there, but you might actually mute one of those notes. So just, again, be aware of where your fretting hand thumb is so you can keep those strings clear. And then we're going to go back to 8 to 9. Now we're going to go to the 4th fret. The 4th fret hammering on to the 5th fret. Now we're going to go 3rd to 4th. 2nd to 3rd. 1st to 2nd. And then open to 1st. So that goes 4 to 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2. It sounds weird in isolation, but once you put those other open strings in there, it sounds kind of cool, right? So we've gone through breaking down exactly where everything is happening on the shifting hands with the fretboard and what's happening with the patterns here. So we're going to try this at 88 beats per minute. And we're going to actually do this still in 4/4 time, but what you're going to notice is that there are some pickup notes. And if you hear the backing track, the drums will sort of introduce when the that comes in, and I'll help count it off as well. But just be aware that whole pattern is going to kick in, but we have a couple beats early because of those pickup notes. So let's jump into that now. 1, 2, go. Excellent job on that pattern. In the next lesson, we're going to do a little bit more detail on some of the banjo patterns, but also some of that hopping thumb stuff that we were talking about earlier as well. So excellent work, and I will see you in the next lesson. We'll pick it up from there. Thanks. Bye.